So when I was a student and I was first learning really about French literature, and I decided I wanted to look at the 19th century as part of my studies, and I thought where better to start than Victor Hugo. I hadn't really understood poetry when I first had studied it as a student. I'd done Charles Baudelaire and Mallarmé, and I think as a brand new student I found it very complicated. But later in my studies, as I began to develop more critical skills, I thought, right, I'll try my hand at fiction, and I started with Notre Dame de Paris, and it was a love affair from there on in. As soon as I'd read Notre Dame de Paris, I thought, I want to know more about this character, who wrote this story, and the more I learned, the more intrigued I was. I have to say I have great fondness for 93, his last novel, one that's not hugely well known, or certainly not as well known as Les Miserables or Notre Dame de Paris, but one that I think has this tremendous political edge to it and a great story. I think sentimentally Notre Dame de Paris will always be my go-to because that's where I started, but I think 93 has that extra bite that some of his other works don't quite have. I think the stories I like are the stories of humility more than anything. So when Gustave Flaubert, the famous novelist, first meets Victor Hugo, he says he wasn't at all like the great man that he suspected he would be. He wasn't pontificating, he wasn't overly grand or bombastic. He was just this very approachable, very personable individual. And I think it's those stories that other people find very surprising, so I think they're the ones I probably cite. I think Hugo was a writer who wanted to be very much of his times, but with that also wanted to be timeless. So it's that combination of being timely and at the same time being timeless that I think really strikes you when you look at his legacy. And the issues that he touches upon are issues that continue to concern us as an ever-progressing society: social inequality, social intolerance, compassion. So some of these issues can be traced right back, of course, to some of his favourite writers from the ancient world. I think Hugo puts himself in that tradition as a writer who sees the duty of the artist to be that person who carries the mantle, picks up that torch and takes it forward.